Alright, so today I'm finally going to get around to a video that a bunch of you actually wanted me to do, and that's the one thing I'd change about every hero in For Honor Remastered. Instead of doing it the exact same way as before, I plan on splitting it up into the different classes that For Honor has rather than the factions. So we're going to do the Vanguards first and then move on to the Assassins, Heavies, and Hybrids. I'm glad that so many of you requested this video, as even though a lot of us have differing opinions and experiences with the game, you guys aren't flooding me with dislikes or negativity just because we don't all have the same views, and I've always appreciated that. Also, before we start, really fast, I just wanted to say thank you for 50,000 subs. I really appreciate everyone that has subbed, and even those of you who just tune in from time to time. It was a goal of mine and you all came through for me, so thank you. And finally, if any of the gameplay looks a little different than usual, it's because I bit the bullet and played on console for a bit just to see what it was like again, so bear with me because it has been quite an experience going back to console after playing PC for so long. Anyways, let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Alright, so starting things off, we've got Raider, the Vikings Vanguard, and the topic of a lot of discussion since the season began. Raider's rework obviously made him a much better hero than he was before, although over the course of the season he's gotten more tolerable as UB continues to make changes to him. Now before, about 4.5 months ago, I had this to say about Raider. Now Raider is one of the heroes who I think most people would love to see some kind of buff. Again, there's a few things I'd add to Raider, stamina cost reductions, slightly faster stunning tap so it won't be parried all the time, making his carry interruptible, as I'm not a fan of moves that just rip you away from fights and kill you almost instantly in a gank, and more chains. We're not sure exactly what UB will do with Raider. I'm hoping it's just not making him faster and giving him hyper armor though. I like how I said I hope that he doesn't just get faster and acquire hyper armor, and both of those things happened along with the damage buff. I am glad that the charge became interruptible though, and that he got more chains, and that the stunning tap isn't easy to parry all the time anymore. Although, it is pretty annoying to be blinded or get wiped in 3 hits nowadays. Anyways, from then my opinion has definitely changed on Raider, and the one thing I'd want to change has changed as well. And this time around, it really came down to 2 things. I either wanted to see that damage buff reverted, just because I still can't figure out why he got one. But right now, I'm going to go with fixing those animations. They're currently my least favorite thing about Raider because they look so unnatural and awkward, especially on console. I think if his animations were a little smoother, people would have an easier time dealing with him, especially with the stunning tap. But I'd also like to see UB touch up on his animations because I love the animations in this game. A majority of them look really good, and even if the way that some of the heroes wield and use their weapons may be a bit unauthentic, they still look amazing, and sometimes Raider looks a bit out of place doing 180-degree mid-air turns in the blink of an eye. Alright, now on to Warden. There's not much changing with Warden. There's not much wrong with Warden really. I just wish that he had more to do. I wish that his kit was a bit larger and didn't revolve around the shoulders so much. I don't care what anyone says, I think it's just sort of boring to look at, and Warden could be a much more interesting hero to use. I get that Vanguards are supposed to be sort of easy to use, but Warden could be even more cool than he is now if only he used the sword more in combat. I know that none of the heroes in For Honor have super complex or deep kits or anything, but Warden's moveset feels so small. In the past, I've been pretty critical of the bash, and that's mainly because he can feint the bash after he starts moving, and because I'm not a huge fan of a bash that can confirm like a third of a few heroes' health bars. But nowadays, I'm much more tolerant of it because, well, what is Warden really supposed to do if they're trying to win? Throw some zones? I wish I could say, give Warden something else to do, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I do a couple of things to slightly shift where his power lies. I'd be fine if the fully charged shoulder bash only gave a side heavy when it landed, but still allowed a wall splat for a top heavy. And to compensate, I'd speed that top heavy unblockable up a bit to make it more of a threat and make that chain more dangerous. I know it's not huge, but I can't really think of much for Warden because there's not much there. I still wish that the rework he received gave him more to do, but oh well. Next up is Tiandi. While playing Tiandi on PS4, I had a confusing time. I got thrown into a few matches where the connection wasn't too stable, so I saw neutral pommel strikes, instant pommel strike follow-ups. I got an option select parry that decided to do both parry and zone. I got palm strike by a ghost, and another Tiandi and I danced through time. It was fun. Now, Tiandi really settled into For Honor in his own way. He's just a pretty average hero in this game. He's not the best, he's not the worst, he's just an average hero. Whenever I see a Tiandi on the other team, I feel no sort of way. I just prepare my game and play. And I've sort of started to enjoy playing Tiandi again recently as I start to prepare for Season 11. I really like the way he can dance around the battlefield, as I still like the way the dodges look. I know it's not practical to dodge around all the time because eventually you'll get caught by a guard break or something, but it is really satisfying when you use his dragon dodges to completely avoid an attack and land one of your own. It's one of the reasons I was drawn to Tiandi in the first place in Season 8 when he released. But after using him a bit more, there were just a few things that I kept finding myself wishing for. One being the ability to kick after any heavy, even after the finishers, as I feel that would just be a nice little quality of life thing for Tiandi. Another being the ability to target swap a kick. I think it would be awesome to dodge around in a team fight and position yourself in just the right spot to kick someone off a ledge or into an environmental, or use it to set your teammates up with a free heavy if your positioning is right. I sometimes find myself pressing guard break after finishers because it's something that I feel just makes sense. Maybe it wouldn't be the most practical thing in the world, but I think it would allow Tiandi to put some more pressure on his opponents, give him something to do other than sit in those recoveries, and I think it would just be really fun to use. And of course, with this, maybe we could see a few stamina cost reductions in a few places so that he can actually use these moves while fighting without going out of stamina. So yeah, if I had to choose one thing nowadays, let's just say kick improvements, allow Tiandi to target swap kicks, and allow Tiandi to kick after heavy finishers, from which he can dodge from and whatnot. And if the kick is too slow and he ends up getting hit out of it, allow him to dodge out of recoveries instead. I'd have no problem with that. And now on to Kensei. I've talked about before how I love the concept of Kensei and how he possesses my favorite rework because I feel that it did the hero well. It gave him options, stayed true to the character, and at the time of its release, made Kensei an overall better hero. He got his rework all the way back in Season 5, and now that we're halfway through Season 10, I do believe he's starting to fall behind a bit, despite him having a lot of the characteristics that I like in a hero. And I mean, that was just bound to happen over time. As heroes get better and faster and UB starts to make better heroes, the ones who were worked on long ago will just start to fall behind. He is still a pretty solid hero though. I've been using Kensei a bit more recently, and again, there's a few things I'd like to see Kensei receive one day. An improved Nature's Wrath if the escape changes don't make it better. Some sort of improvement to his neutral top heavy so that he doesn't get hit out of it so often. A slightly stronger second heavy, and of course something done to those sidelights. I'm going to sort of stretch the rules here and say something really broad just so I can squeeze 2 improvements in there. But if I had to choose one thing to change on Kensei, I'd improve his light attacks. I know that it doesn't sound great, but I'm not talking about speeding him up all over the place or giving him a 400 millisecond top light or anything like that. I just think that he shouldn't still have 600 millisecond sidelights. I think that they just don't belong in the game anymore. On top of this, it does like 12 damage, so there's hardly a reason to use it. Of course, a damage buff would do it well, or you could speed it up to 500 milliseconds, which I believe UB would do, or you could make it an enhanced light so it doesn't bounce on block. And I don't think anyone really has a problem with enhanced lights. I wouldn't mind seeing more of them make their way into the game so that some heroes can get into their chains a bit easier. I think with the Lawbringer rework here, we all see that a regular old 500 millisecond light that doesn't bounce on block isn't that big of a deal. Now of course, I think bringing them to 500 milliseconds with a small damage buff would be really good for Kensei, but I'd be fine if instead of the damage buff, they just make it enhanced as well, and on top of this, make any side light enhanced, whether it's from neutral, chained, or soft fainted. I wouldn't mind seeing them not bounce on block, just so that Kensei can get through those chains a bit easier and faster, so he's not getting poked out. I think it would make fighting with Kensei a bit more interesting, as you'd have an easier time getting to those finishers that you want to get to. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. I had fun putting this one together, even though I don't make many videos like this anymore. This time around was of course Vanguards, and I'm not really sure which class I'll work on next. Since this is just one thing I'd change for these heroes, of course I didn't talk about everything with them. I've been playing a bit more console recently, just to see what it's like again, and the most surprising thing to me has been that I find games in less than 30 seconds. I am getting used to it again, but I doubt I'll keep playing it, but maybe I'll hop on from time to time just to switch things up. Anyways, I do want to hear from you guys, so talk to me down in the comments about anything we talked about in this video. And as always, if you like the video, feel free to leave a like and sub if you're new, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.